All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. For those who don't know me, my name is Rose Bustamante, and I am the City of Kitchener's Director of Planning and Housing Policy. Welcome to the first evening in our Kitchener 2051 speaker series, focused on ability and mobility. We're so thrilled to have you here tonight at this event. I'm going to begin our evening with a land acknowledgement. The City of Kitchener is situated on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize our responsibility to serve as stewards for the land and honor the original caretakers who came before us. Our community is enriched by the enduring knowledge and deep-rooted traditions of the diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Kitchener today. And to me, as I stand here today in Kitchener, I reflect on the role that our urban planning team and city staff have as stewards of our land and the decisions that we make around land use policies and zoning. We all hold important responsibilities to plan for the future of Kitchener in a thoughtful, collaborative, and integrated way. Next slide, please. Some of you may know that Kitchener 2051 is the name of our new official plan. As Kitchener grows to become a city of up to 450,000 people over the coming decades, we need to have a new plan. Kitchener 2051 will be a plan for our future, building on today. It presents a significant opportunity for all of us to think about how we live, how we move, and what we love about Kitchener and what we want to become. This process is about the people who currently live here, as well as future residents, like the young people who will the young people who will grow old in our community, or the family looking to move to Kitchener. This means we need to prepare a new official plan document that will guide how our neighborhoods evolve and change over the next 25 years. The official plan also provides direction for implementing tools like zoning bylaw that set out what you can build on your property. And alongside the new official plan for the city, a new transportation master plan will start in 2025 to guide our future transportation network. This means creating a blueprint for local roads, walking, cycling, and rolling, and understanding how we can respond to new ways to get around. Next slide, please. Kitchener 2051 needs to consider a full range of perspectives to shape an official plan that will reflect the needs of all. This includes people often underrepresented in these processes, such as equity-denied communities, renters, and people who have experienced homelessness, poverty, or housing precarity. Over the next year and a half, we will be hosting conversations like the one tonight to talk about issues that reflect who we are, what we value, and what we want to become as a community. The Kitchener official plan has 4 themes: a connected city, a caring city, a green city, and a thriving city. Tonight's discussion is focused on 2 of those themes, a connected city and a caring city. These themes are guiding components of our Kitchener 2051 project. A connected city is focused on how we move. It's about getting around easily, sustainably, and safely to the places that matter most to us. A caring city is focused on planning for community well-being. It's about welcoming residents of all ages, backgrounds, and lived experiences. It's about planning for inclusion and belonging. And how does this connect with our speaker series tonight? The panel discussion will explore what it means to build a caring and a connected city with a focus on ability, mobility, neurodiversity, mental health, and equity. In our region, just over 20% of the population are living with disabilities, and just under 10% live with mood disorders like depression and bipolar. This is an important conversation that we as a community need to have. As members of this community, our relationship with the city could change over the course of our lifetime. Your circumstances could change, your abilities could change. And how can our built environment meet the needs of everybody from all abilities and capacities at all stages of their lives? These are some of the themes that we're excited to dive into tonight with our panel. And now I'd like to turn things over to Olivia Curtis, our Inclusion Services Coordinator at the City of Kitchener, to moderate tonight's discussion and kick off our panel.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Like Rosa said, I'm Olivia Curtis. I'm one of our Inclusion Services coordinators here at the City of Kitchener. And tonight we have a panel of 4 individuals with professional and lived experience in disability. And we will maybe go starting here with Simon, if you want to introduce yourself and kind of talk about your connection to the city or the region of Waterloo.
Hello, I'm Simon Garcia. I live here in Kitchener for 2003, and also I go to transit every time, so I will share with you, just in case, later on.
Thanks, Simon. Hi, my name is Mazumder. I'm currently a postdoctoral fellow with the Future Cities Institute at the University of Waterloo. So that's one connection to the region, but I also did my PhD here in psychology under the supervision of Colin Ellard, looking at the psychological impacts of urban design. And I actually spent my toddler years here. My dad did his PhD at Waterloo, so lots of fond memories of this place, and I'm very honored to be here with you.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Biglieri. I use the pronouns she, her. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Urban and Regional Planning at Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly known as Ryerson. I am a planner who does research about how the places we live in affect our health and well-being. I did my PhD here in the School of Planning at the University of Waterloo, and I lived right downtown Kitchener for over 4 years and loved it. And getting around the city for me was riding my bike on the spur line and the Iron Horse Trail, taking the Ion, driving all different kinds of things. And yeah, my research mostly focuses on working with older adults and people living with dementia and sort of exploring how we think about accessibility and disability in the planning profession. Kathleen?
Thank you. My name's Kathleen Vanderlinden, and I have dementia. I have young, early onset dementia, and I had a stroke 21 years ago, and I have vascular dementia, and I broke my back about 10 years ago. And I've lived here 22 years, and
So speaking of Kathleen, Sam, would you like to provide us a little bit more, provide us a little bit more information about the Dementia Capable Community project that you've been working on?
Yeah. Thanks, Kathleen. So Kathleen and I are co-researchers on the Dementia Capable Waterloo project. And we lead this project with Dr. Laura Middleton, who's a professor at the University of Waterloo. And Laura does research on exercise and dementia and healthy living. And we once met and we said to each other, you know, I do urban planning, she does exercise. It seems like these things are thought of separately. And we wanted to do a project that brought all of the different parts of community together, from how we interact with our neighbors, to how we interact with storekeepers, to planning and policy and programs. And so we've been working on that project with fantastic folks in our region. And as part of that project, we created a video. It's sort of a day in the life video of Kathleen's experience getting around the city.
Amazing. I think we have that video queued up right now.
like get up in the morning. It's really hard to try to remember because I've forgotten in the past. I go outside. I love the fact that there are trees everywhere. Hearing the children on the street, laughter, and they are so great. And I like all my neighbors that I know. There aren't enough benches. I think there should be more benches. It's really getting to be seeing the cars going every which way. the world's going so fast. I'm the type of person who needs to be around people. Being at the YMCA really makes me feel safe and secure, and I know people. When I go to a library, I say, what would you suggest people do? Makes a huge difference. Laurel Creek feels like home to me because I love to see all the butterflies and bugs. Look at me, I'm just like you. There's no shame. I've got dementia, and could you, if I need it, would you be around here to help me out?
Thank you so much for sharing, Kathleen. Which moves us into our first panel question tonight. And we are just going to ask our panelists a little bit more information about what is your current everyday experience living in the region, or specifically your everyday today life. What works for you with our accessibility and what doesn't? Do you want to start, Simon?
So I use transportation always, GRTC, which I go from Kitchener to Waterloo when I'm working. So the one thing that I am concerning is the wasting time with the bus. It takes like 50 minutes, like approximately 1 hour. It's like here to Toronto, if you're driving from here to Toronto. So it's the same thing from my home to my work. It's just my bus. And the one thing that I want to be is going more faster bus and less stopping. And also maybe they can get an express one from Ferry Park Mall all the way to Conestoga Mall without anything of stops. Just go and go back. And yeah, also on the winter time, there's a lot of trails going on. So there's some trails have a good part of pavement, and some are not have anything of clearance. Yes, like rocks, like clearing rocks. And in the winter time, that's when everything is just no go trail because there's some ice. We wish that they need to clean out the ice and also clean the sidewalks from people who are living in the homes or in the trails, because winter is not a good thing when there's a lot of snow and someone is flipping, or I don't know, when there's ice. And I think that's all for now.
Thanks, Simon. Can you repeat the question?
Sure, absolutely. There were a couple of parts to that for sure. So first question was, what's your everyday experience right now navigating the region? What do you like? What don't you like?
Okay. So I live downtown Kitchener. I work at the University of Waterloo, so I'm lucky to have access to this Furline Trail, which gives me a pretty direct route to the university where I don't have to deal with drivers, which at times when I don't have access to that particular trail, it's a fairly negative experience. It's pretty stressful. particularly regional roads, I find are pretty hostile. So I don't like that aspect, but I will speak to another strength that I'm very much appreciative of now that I've returned and have closer access to is the ION. The LRT is fantastic. I think it's really impressive given the size of the city. I think it's probably, I've heard, like the smallest city with an LRT system. So it's a strength that I think we can continue to build on. And I would echo Simon's sentiments around snow in the winter, but I can share those later.
I'll pass it to Kathleen.
Sure. So Kathleen, do you maybe want to build on what you had talked about in the video about what makes it difficult right now for traveling around the city and what aspects you like about your community?
Okay. I love the fact that you can go outside and see every person and wave to my neighbors and but I live in a kind of rural area, and so if I can't get out, which is most times, then I feel isolated and like I suffer from depression too, and that is really rotten when you have all this to deal with. And the GRT is great, but you have to have a window like of time period. You have to, it takes a whole lot of effort to get out, and I did make a suggestion that they put the steps. Yeah, in cement pavement. Because I thought that if not, it's very tricky to get a roll later down there to off the curb. And I asked for more benches because I think I can't go around my neighborhood without stopping and there's no benches. And I know that we can't, I mean, it would be a lot to do that. So I know that we can't, but maybe just a few. And there's no, no proper.
Are we talking about snow removal?
No, I mean the bus shelters aren't always there, and you're standing in the cold rain and wind, and it's hard. But I think that they are making an effort to really try and do those things. And well, yeah, the staff at the Y, I go to the one in Kitchener, in Waterloo, sorry. But still alive. But it is like you go there and you don't have to bounce up like, you can just walk in and it's all accessible to everybody, and they're so fantastic. Anyway, so that's really good.
That's a great answer. Thank you. You covered lots of topics for us. And then I guess if you want to pass the mic to Sam, and if you want to just talk about your experience with within living the city, what have you heard works well and doesn't work well either for you or the people that you work with?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. I had to write down things because so many thoughts. So I'll speak primarily from my research experience working with folks living with dementia, going on go-along interviews all throughout the region since 2018. And some of the things we've noticed are that folks tend to prefer familiar and quiet streets. When we did our go-along interviews, arterial roads that Robin spoke to are not only very scary, but they're often a barrier for people. Like, they're like a fence. They don't cross that road. And I think that's a really different way of thinking about it. And there's a lot going on when we think about arterial roads and even crossings. And to tell sort of a story, we went on a go-along interview, and I was with a gentleman, and we were probably 25 meters away from a signalized intersection. So, you know, red lights, green lights. And he said, you know, we're going to cross here at the median. And I was like, okay, a little unsafe, but sure. And so we crossed to the median, we waited, took a break, and then we crossed again. And I said, you know, like, why are we crossing at the median? And he said, well, the thing about the signalized intersection is that there's so much going on. There's red lights and green lights and cars turning right and cars turning left, and the thing is counting down. And I got to stay within the lines, and I got to make sure I don't hit people as I'm walking, and it's too much. And so for this person, he was like, if I cross at the median, I only have to pay attention to one input of information at a time. And I get to take a break, and then I can go again. And so that was his way of sort of remaking the world to be more accessible to him. And so that's something that, as a planner, I never thought a humble median could accomplish, truthfully. And, oh, did you want to add something?
Yeah. And to say that there's all this happening is really hard, because I can't, if you have a role leader like I do, and they want you to go ahead so quickly, and you just freak out and say, no, let me go. And they often do, but sometimes they'll really give you the finger or whatever. But yeah.
Thank you for that. Love that. Sorry. We giggle. We have a good time. Yeah. So another thing that we've noticed is so there's I think on Highland in Kitchener there's now a sidewalk that's beside a bike lane, and so it was designed so that when you're going along, you're not sort of going up and down with the curbs, which I love. But the problem is that the sidewalk is right beside the bike lane, and so something we heard from folks working in Waterloo is that the thing is, having a bike speed past you is so stressful, and you feel like you might be blown over. And so something that like is good for one reason may not work for other folks. And so something that I encourage us to think about is like, how do different disabilities intersect, and what do different people need, different access needs, and thinking about how do we make that work. And the other thing that I wanted to pick up on from what Kathleen said about ordering the GRT bus, the paratransit service, is that, and to recognize that so many folks who are living with dementia or people with disabilities, there's all this extra work and extra labor just to get outside. And so we have to acknowledge that there's all this extra labor, and how can we, like as a city, as planners, as citizens, lessen that amount of labor through our systems, through what we build. And, were you gonna add something? No, sorry, okay, yeah?
Yeah, like called, I want to say this. I called the GRT a couple of, month back, and I was talked to very, very rudely, and I've heard through the grapevine that other people have experienced the same thing, and it's so bad that I don't want to call them because I don't want to get yelled at again because I can't talk quickly, and they.
Thanks for sharing that. I'll pass it back to her.
Sure. Thank you everybody for sharing, and I appreciate the emotional vulnerability there as well too. And yeah, I know we talked a lot about some things that kind of make accessing the city more difficult and slow pieces of your day-to-day life that maybe not everybody has to think about, and it's really important for us to take all of those pieces into consideration while we grow the city, so that we can make sure that everybody has those opportunities to access and live the life the way you want to live them, right? So for when we're thinking about building a future in the city, Simon, do you want to tell us some ideas you might have that would make you feel more supported and welcome in the city?
So on the GRTC, I know in Ion trains right now, on the Ion trains, and especially the buses to go to Fairview all the way to Cambridge. There's one bus, and they got the Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi for everyone who use the Ion and the buses to go to Fairview to Cambridge only. That's the only part. But my idea is, what if the GRTC, the rest of GRTC, the buses has Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi access. That would be a great idea, because seems like everyone, like when I go to the buses, everyone is using phones and they're using mobile data, and me too, I'm using mobile data every time. Only if I go to Ion, it will be free, but I've been to the Ion and it gets free. But sometimes there is some lacking. There's some lacking of Wi-Fi. I mean Wi-Fi when I go hopping, and then it's not saying Wi-Fi. It's everything is just. but I want the GRTC get the Wi-Fi. Just a couple buses, not just the Ion or the. From Fairview to Cambridge, and also this city is growing bigger every time. It feels like it's getting bigger, taller buildings everywhere. Kind of like if you see downtown Kitchener. Thank goodness I'm not living downtown Kitchener. I live in Country Hills, so the Country Hills right now is okay. It's not like going big buildings, just small city town halls and a few more of towns. So I love to live that area. I don't want becoming a big, big massive buildings everywhere. So I want to keep in touch with small areas, and maybe a park. I live kind of a mile away of a park, but no more buildings. Just like here in downtown, like right now downtown, you will see a lot of buildings of up and up and up. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to keep the sense of community small.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Do you have anything else you want to add, Simon?
That's all. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So if we want to pass the mic to Robin. So Robin, same question. Is there anything that the city can do to keep in mind when creating future plans for growing the city? And do you have any ideas of, things that other cities are doing right now that you've seen and you've liked?
Yeah, so I'll put a few hats on here. So one of the things that inspired my interest in understanding the psychological impacts of urban design was my clinical work as an occupational therapist. So I worked in community mental health, and that's really where I started to see how different sensory environments impacted people negatively. I also live with bipolar disorder, which comes with an array of issues. One of them is a circadian rhythm disorder, so sleep can be really difficult. And there's a bunch of, and this is my neuroscientist hat on now, there's a bunch of research that suggests that living in urban environments can really significantly disrupt that and precipitate episodes, but also, the stress, the environmental stressors can possibly have an effect on the development of the illness itself. So, from like childhood on. So, thinking about the future, I think, the built environment is incredibly important to consider, and tall buildings actually have impacts on acoustics in cities as well. So, thinking about that first person experience, I know that we're trying to densify, and there's a massive housing crisis, but I think there's a balance between density, maybe we need less parking lots and more medium density, and even scale, which I think which was what Simon was speaking to. In terms of my experiences where I've kind of seen what that's like, I was in Barcelona in 2018, and they have something there called super blocks where they just shut down entire neighborhoods and put bright paint on the ground and playgrounds on the streets, and it was fascinating to see in such a bustling city that you could hear birds singing and have a conversation with somebody. Try doing that on Weaver Street or Victoria Street.
Yeah, Kathleen, do you want to touch on some things that you would hope the city takes into account as we grow, or if there's anything on your wish list?
Well, I think, like what Robin was saying, that I was in Ireland and 2 years ago, and they have developed a friendly park for seniors, and anybody can go to it, but it is specifically with seniors in mind, and especially who have issues with mobility, and anybody can go there, get in, and one has a bridge, and you can go and walk on that and forget you're in the city. Well, you would, I'd say anywhere there, but and it's a really nice area to go to, and talk with people who are regular people. I don't mean people. And it was so lovely. So I think if we could do something like that and have a better understanding of people, really listen and hear, because those are two different things. And so, yeah, I'd like to see that.
That's a perfect segue. Thank you, Kathleen. What I was going to say, a couple of things. I think when we're thinking about how do we build a city that everyone can access and where everyone feels supported, I think that starts with how we do public engagement. It's a great example of really incredible public engagement coming from the city. I know that in an official plan, you can ask developers, you can ask people to sort of go beyond what's required in the Planning Act. And so for me, I think, at a minimum, we want to modify our existing methods to enable folks to access those processes. A couple of years ago, we went to public open house meetings here in the region, and we just experienced them like regular citizens. And we sort of found out there are a couple of things about like picking the right room for sensory environment, how you communicate with people, not rushing them, giving them space, and then how you present information. And people really loved the open house because you sort of got to learn at your own pace. And so things of bare minimum like having ASL translation, having cited guides, making sure that we have info beyond printed words, things like that. And then in terms of the OP, to also go beyond things like our required legislation, like the AODA, the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, and really going beyond a checklist to thinking about human beings as existing on this spectrum of what our bodies can do and our minds, as opposed to thinking it's just like, oh yeah, I did this thing and now I'm done, right? And so an example that from some of my other work is that talking to someone who said, it was great they built the ramp, but I had to bang on the door of the store for them to turn on the automatic door so that I could actually get into the building. And so for me, that goes to thinking about how we move through cities as a journey from that like home to the place and back, and really thinking about all these different pieces that we can potentially influence. And then the last one that I will just plug is really thinking about wayfinding a little bit more. When we think about wayfinding signs and we think about icons, work that we've done has shown that sometimes icons can be confusing or you don't necessarily know what they mean. And so trying to use things like photographs to show different signage. And I talked about that at a conference once, and someone came up to me and they said, I would love that because I'm dyslexic and I have difficulty reading signs. And so if there was a photograph, I would know, oh, that's downtown over there. And finally, a promising practice in terms of, keeping that hubbub and like people playing in the streets like in Barcelona or like in Ireland, is creating spaces where people can go for refuge. So are there like quiet spaces in that like busy area where like if you need a break, you could take a little break. And so you can have all these exciting pedestrian-friendly things. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to our panelists for sharing those pieces. We're just going to open up the floor to you all and get some, if anybody has some questions for our panelists or anything that anybody said that sparked some curiosity, now is the time. So Elissa has the microphone. If you're able to raise your hand, she can come by and hand you the microphone. Or you can, we got one in the back there.
I don't mind shouting it if that's okay. You guys can hear me. One of the things that I found, and I'm not a slow walker, but when you were talking about the median and how the median is sort of preferred for people, when I go to walk, the walk guy comes up and I go to get across, it's already flashing before I get to the other side of the intersection. And I'm not slow, I might be clumsy, but I don't even have mobility issues. Is that something that we could consider as lengthening that time? Because if I start when the walk starts and I can't get to the other side, I don't know how anybody, whether it be a stroller, a wheelchair, using a walking device, a cane, anything like that can get across in the appropriate amount of time through these busy intersections.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone wants to jump on that?
Just because she mentioned the walk sign, so for myself, I use a wheelchair to get around. So I use a wheelchair to get around, and in the winter, it's really, really stressful for me because when I get to the end of a sidewalk, often I'm blocked in by snow. All the time. And that means I have to take the road in order to get across the street. But the button is on the sidewalk that I can't access. So I can't actually get across the street because it doesn't change to the walkman. So then what? you know. So in my case, I'm forced to go home because I can't go where I need to go. So I'm always stuck inside during winter time for that reason.
So like what was like above my head.
Oh gosh, yeah, the hills and everything like that, yeah.
I think they changed it, but it was like up here. Like I'm standing and I can't reach it. That's something they changed.
And I'm fast and the traffic doesn't wait for me either. They don't, because they say, you know, it's like you're gonna go, you're not gonna go. And like it takes sometimes for people to get a start. And once you get that start, that's when they decide to go ahead. And it's like, well, still not right away. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know that was something in our conversation prior to the panel, Kathleen, you had talked quite a bit about as well, and I think it was a consensus for everybody. Did Robin or Sam, do you guys have any ideas about what, that could potentially look like of creating an environment where it might be more accessible, aside from ensuring proper snow clearance, and that our buttons are in a space that are accessible to all?
Things. Thank you. Oh yeah, it's horrible because you can't, like you said, it's always that way. And I think, sorry guys, but I think you can do with the lights. I think everybody has a right to it. Yeah.
We can I'm not speaking for transportation services, but you can lengthen lights. I would also caution, I don't know if you've seen videos, and I was in Japan a couple months ago, and they have special buttons so that you can have longer time to cross. I caution us against that, because that's an extra step, right? There was literally, you had to have a card that tapped the thing in order to get it longer. And that feeds into this idea of more work, right? So just lengthen the time, let the car wait another 20 seconds.
Yeah, I would just generally suggest to do away with what are known as beg buttons. I think that creates an experience of the city that requires a certain level of vigilance or stress. And from my neuroscience perspective, that has a negative impact on your physiology, and the accumulation of constantly having to live where, if you don't have enough time to cross, if your experience of the city is constantly punctuated by that negativity, it adds up and it makes people not want to get out in the city, and has a number of other repercussions, social isolation. And it's amazing how something as simple as changing a walk sign from 5 seconds, which is what it is in KW, it blows my mind. Not to get too negative about it, but it's a small win, and at the Future Cities Institute, we're talking about the future of cities and machine learning and all these wild technologies. But there are these low-hanging fruit here that I think we can do something about: sidewalk snow clearance, time to cross the street, and just considering that first-person perspective, and then acknowledging that not everyone is an able-bodied person.
So in my neighborhood, there is an iron train that is block line station, and when I walk, sometimes I walk there, but the long one, not the shorter one, but the long one. And when I walk, it says 15 minutes or 20 minutes countdown, and that's when the cars enter. When the cars enter the green light and anyone is going. But I'm almost halfway. Once the 10 minutes or 10 seconds left, I'm still there, in the middle of the street, and I'm still walking. It takes a lot of courage to walk. Just imagine if the winter time is when everything is just runs out very quickly. I wish the walk signs. I wish they can stay a little more longer there. But also at the same time, I'm thinking about like Toronto. Like Toronto, there's a Toronto, if you know Yonge and Dundas, there is sidewalks, so everyone is stopping the same time, and people can walk all directions, all the way. It's amazing. I think it's about 30 seconds, or 40 seconds. But it's amazing that people can walk all directions that you really want. and everyone in the cars are stopping because you're going this way or that way, then just going walk this way and then stop, and then going that way and stop, and then it's like a square. So that's all.
It puts you as the walker first. Yeah, amazing. Okay, and I think we have another question. 2, okay.
Hi, my name is Nadi. I use they, them pronouns. Sam, you had mentioned that even some places that have a ramp, they still need to get a person's attention to actually access the building. It reminded me of something that I encounter. I run events for the queer community in art spaces. We have so few venues in town that are accessible. So if there are folks who want to go to an art show or a drag show or a dance show, and they need accessible buildings, they don't have access to those venues. And the venues, the few that do have elevators, those elevators are only accessible with a key. So if you can enter the elevator, you still need to get a human's attention to say, hey, I need the elevator, can you come to with a key? So that's something I've run into problems with when I've used the Registry Theater, Button Factory Arts. Both of those have elevators, which, yay, that's great, but you have to go up the stairs to get someone's attention to have you use the elevator. So even when we're taking a step forward, it's still a step forward up the stairs. It's not much of a question, just a comment of an area where we're still falling short for a lot of folks. So I wanted to point that out.
Sure. I think we have someone in the back first who's just going to ask a question, and then we can go to you.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's a way to, in planning, think of planning things with people first rather than car, or pedestrian first rather than car first. And the 2 examples that I can think of where this would be very beneficial is we were talking a lot about the what's it called, the buttons to press for the traffic lights, and I don't understand why we need to push a button to be able to have the walk thing. It's we're always assuming that there's cars going by, but we're not always assuming that there's people around. And if we just didn't have to press that button, it would save pedestrians a lot of work in terms of thinking was this one that I need to press or not need to press, and is it the wrong time to press it because the wrong time of the cycle has it been pressed already? And then also as a cyclist personally, there's certain spots where I can't get a green light to turn unless I go and press the button, and I'm not a pedestrian and I'm not a car, and it's not going to change. Anyways, so yeah, putting people first would be so beneficial. Also, this is an example in Waterloo, but I'm sure Kitchener has something the same, of where they recently, or a few years ago, put in a Farm Boy location, and there's no, the sidewalk does not connect to the driveway that goes into the Farm Boy. And it's just it's only for cars. And that's where a lot of people go to get their groceries by walking, like me, or biking. Yeah, that's it.
So I think the question for maybe our planning focused folks was, what ways can we make it pedestrian focused rather than car focused? Is that kind of correct? Okay.
That's true.
Okay.
I feel you mentioned a whole bunch of great ideas, and colleagues up here as well. Something else I'll mention about parking lots is that when we've taken, or when I've taken folks on goal line interviews in parking lots, the thing is that parking lots are really stressful because you don't like know where the cars are coming from, and that can be quite overwhelming. And you know, if I think about the boardwalk, for instance, there's just like a nice raised sidewalk in between the two parking lot spots, and so you feel a little bit safer being up on this sidewalk, or you know, there's shrubbery in between the sidewalk and the road, and so that like little extra bit of buffer can provide that peace of mind. But it also needs to connect to the stores. So if your sidewalk doesn't actually connect to where you need to go, that makes it way more difficult. But parking lots can be really unpredictable, and so there's like easy things we can do to make them more predictable and feel safer. Does anyone want to add?
Just talking about, I can't remember where it came from, but one thing about the getting into a ramp, into a store, I was at a restaurant recently and for a birthday party, and we walked in and we said, I'm here for Margaret's birthday. Where is it? Where do we go? And they said, right downstairs. I said, okay, but that's great, but is there an elevator? No. But I didn't want to miss the party. And so we said, okay, that's fine. And then when we were coming back up the stairs, the long stairs, I said, you know, I'm really mad that you guys don't have an elevator, because this is 2024, you know, like, get real. So, but why they wouldn't have so we were coming back up the stairs, and at 10:30 at night, which is, I am so dead tired about 3 o'clock, but so stairs become really difficult, and so I was kind of angry, I'm sorry, but at that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that I think it would be great if the city would consider making pedestrian crossovers a standard much more frequently at intersections and mid-blocks. So that's basically a crosswalk where a pedestrian has the legal right-of-way over a motorist. Like a very common example, I think, is if you have like a 4-way intersection and only 2 of the legs have a stop sign. It's typically only the 2 legs with a stop sign have a crosswalk, but then the other 2 that don't have the stop sign, you don't have a crosswalk. So if you want to cross the road, you have to look both ways and try and find a gap in the traffic. I don't see any reason why there couldn't be, you know, pedestrian crossover on those legs as well, if you want to get across the road. And then another problem as well, for mid-block crossings, sometimes the gaps between intersections can be pretty long, so if you want to get across the road, you have to go quite out of your way. And then some of them, I guess they have what they call uncontrolled crossings, where the motorists have the right of way over the pedestrian. So sometimes you'll see like the yellow sign that says pedestrians yield to motorists. To me, that's very backwards thinking. You know, the motorist should clearly be stopping for the pedestrian that wants to cross the road. So I would appreciate if the city were put a stronger stance on installing those.
Kathleen mentioned about ramps and how some are accessible but not to the full means. And I had an instance once where I approached a restaurant that I really wanted to try out. There was a ramp, and I tried to access it, but I couldn't because there was a coat rack right in front of the doorway, so that no one would enter it because they didn't want to deal with the cold. So I tapped on the window, and I had the staff point at me and say, use the door. And I pointed out my wheelchair, and I'm like, well, can't really do that. And it was the customers that actually came at my rescue, like, hey, like she needs help. I'm climbing the stairs myself out of my wheelchair just to try and get their attention before they finally like came out and like, oh, okay, and then they moved the stuff out of the way. There's a lot of businesses that are using their accessible means to their own advantage, like even washrooms, they're using it for storage. There's been a number of circumstances where, you know, they're not really actually allowing us to have the opportunity to be there. Or like I went to a restaurant the other day, and they put me at the back of the restaurant because that's where they had space. And I kind of get tired of being put at the back of places. It'd be nice to be out in the open and seeing what everyone else is seeing, but that's not the case. And then there was another circumstance where I was actually at a community center that was not accessible, and I was there to have a voice for those that had other disabilities. I showed up with this wheelchair. I had no way to access the building. Fortunately, I had a friend who actually also uses a wheelchair and brought her own ramp. But if she had not, and she was a speaker, if she had not, neither of us would have been able to attend this event that was supposed to be inclusive for everybody. Like, and this was just a month ago. So why are we still, you know,
No, I appreciate you sharing, absolutely. I don't mean to put a pause on our discussion, but it is 7:30, and I would like to invite Rosa back up to complete some closing remarks and chat a little bit more about our city.
So I want to thank Olivia for that fantastic job moderating our panel tonight, our panel discussion, and especially to our four speakers. I want to extend a sincere thank you to Samantha, Simon, Kathleen, and Robin for sharing all of your important insights and perspectives with us tonight. I know I was in the audience and I heard a lot of the ideas and examples that you shared, the invisible barriers that may not always be obvious to some people in our community, but that you so vulnerably shared with us tonight. And I think there's a lot of feedback we can take away and think about when we look at things like wayfinding, medians, crosswalks, all kinds of different built environment attributes and characteristics, and looking at it from a new perspective and a new lens. So thank you very much for your insights tonight. I want to ask everyone to give them a round of applause. We are going to bring this part of our session tonight to a close, and I do want to remind all of you that you can sign up at our Engage page for the Kitchener 2051 project so that you can hear more about events like this or participate in other ways. We do have a QR code we can throw up on the screen in a moment, and we'll throw it up in a moment. And we do have an online survey that is looking for your feedback, your ideas, and your perspectives. It does close this Friday, November 22nd, but once the QR code is up and the website link, please feel free to take note of that and share with us any other ideas, comments, feedback, thoughts that you have so that we can build that into our Kitchener 2051 plan. I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and being here to listen to this incredible speaker series. I also want to acknowledge our amazing staff team and consultants behind tonight's event. So I do want to give a shout out to Elisa, Matt, John, Tim, Ben, Kirsten, Natalie, Melanie, Emery, and Yaz, who were all behind the scenes making tonight possible. And if we can give them a round of applause. And finally, thank you to you for coming out. We appreciate your attendance tonight. This formally concludes our evening. Please get home safely and have a good night. Thanks, everyone.